Hello everybody. Next up we play host to Norwich City. Kick-off on Wednesday night is at 7:45 p.m, having been rearranged from a few weeks ago when COVID got involved. As far as I'm aware, there's no legitimate UK TV coverage. There may be an eyes up Mother Brown if there are enough of the crew around not actually going to the game, so keep an eye out. So Norwich then, they're kind of the ultimate yo-yo club really. This is their first season back since their promotion, which followed their relegation, which followed, well, you get the picture. They're on course to keep the sequence going the way things stand. Their first 10 games saw them lose 8 and draw 2. They finally broke their duck with a 2-1 away win over Brentford, a victory that wasn't enough to save Daniel Farke's job. They beat Southampton 2-1 in the following match and picked up a couple of draws over the next week or two as a newly redundant Dean Smith took over. However, their best results since then have been the 2 postponed matches against us and at Leicester. Since the start of December, they've emerged pointless from matches against Spurs, Man United, Villa, Arsenal and Palace, which have left them at the bottom of the league with 10 points from their 19 played. On the face of it, being 3 points from safety isn't that daunting a gap. The fact that Brentford and Burnley both have games in hand, that Norwich have a -34 goal difference, and the fact that Norwich have all the air of a club that have no idea where their next point is coming from, still don't bode well for the Canaries. It's a generally accepted principle that a promoted side with any sorts of ambitions for long-term survival needs to spend a few bob. However, it's also been said that some teams adopt a slightly less ambitious approach, keeping a fairly tight rein on the purse strings whilst trousering the parachute money for a season or two when they get relegated, before getting promoted again and starting the whole cycle once again. It's a business plan that's been levelled at Norwich in particular, and looking at their squad you can see why. On the face of it, when Daisy walks into the room brandishing a list of 15 new signings, 11 permanent and 4 loan, you'd think that might represent an acknowledgement that the squad that came up needed a bit of bolstering. However, a closer inspection of the list shows that the 11 permanent signings includes a number of kids destined for the age squad. Even allowing for that, the actual quality of the signings, whether due to a game plan or good old-fashioned financial constraints, is rather suggestive of a promotion campaign next season rather than staying up this one. Take, for example, Josh Sargent. Now, admittedly, he is an international striker. However, his caps have come for the US national side, which doesn't appear to be at its strongest at the moment. He hasn't scored at international level for 2 years. Well, okay, that includes 2020, which was a bit of a washout for international football, but 0 goals in 7 appearances in 2021 does not make the word prolific leap to mind. The fee paid to Werder Bremen was something like £8 million, which is another indicator of the waters in which they were fishing for a striker, whose only goals in 18 League and Cup appearances for the Canaries this season have come in the League Cup, where he was part of the much-changed side that beat a similarly much-changed Bournemouth side 6-0 in the 3rd round. They spent a similar amount on Burnley centre-back Ben Gibson, and Gibson spent the last season on loan at Carrow Road, having fallen so well and truly out of favour with Sean Dyche that he was sent away to former club Middlesbrough to train, and he wasn't considered for selection through the most dire of injury crises. Given the differences between club and player, one might have almost been forgiven for thinking that Burnley might have paid someone to take him away. So the loan deal that saw an £8 million fee payable should Norwich get promoted last season was probably a very shrewd deal for the Clarets. I understand that in some cultures the number 8 is considered to be lucky. Norwich appeared to have taken this on board by paying £8.8 million for 19-year-old Greek winger Christos Zolis. He's another new signing who hasn't pulled up any trees, as the old saying has it. His fee includes another £2 million or so in performance-based add-ons, which sort of makes one wonder if you ever get a refund in the event of relegation. Amongst the loan signings was Chelsea youngster Billy Gilmore. He'd impressed for both the pensioners and the Scottish national side, but found first-team opportunities limited at Stamford Bridge. He joined Norwich on loan at the start of the season. There's only so much a player can do when playing for a poor side, but this little fact seems to have eluded a section of the Norwich support, who in recent weeks have been inviting Gilmore to return to Chelsea of his own accord, only with slightly less subtlety than that phrase suggests. Boss Dean Smith was supportive of his player, whilst acknowledging that he'd not exactly been at his best. Either way, wherever Norwich end up next season, Gilmore is most unlikely to be hanging around to find out. He's a doubt for Wednesday, an ankle problem being the issue. Their top scorer this season is Finnish striker Teemu Pukki. Pukki has scored 5 in the league this season. Another indication of the difference in class between the top two divisions is the fact that he netted 26 times in the championship last term. You'd get decent odds on him matching that total this season. You'd also lose your money. That said, those 5 goals that he's got represent 62.5% of Norwich's rather meagre total of 8 in the league this season. Another stat that tells its own story. Let's move on, shall we, to an FA Cup special wild and wacky world of association football. Lots of upsets this weekend, where Morecambe will be suffering the embarrassment of having gone out to Minnow's Tottenham, thus causing irreparable harm to bringing Super League football to West Lancashire. Meanwhile, Arsenal went out in Nottingham Forest wearing a kit that had all the usual badges, numbers and logos in white on a white background. Officially, the kit was a one-off to be sold with the laudable aim of raising funds for anti-knife crime charities. From Arsenal's perspective, the white-on-white numbers also help preserve the anonymity of those responsible for a dire performance that stunk the place out. Newcastle's defeat to Ironside's goal for Cambridge prompted lots of jokes about letting in goals to ex-police chiefs wandering around in wheelchairs, which in itself prompted lots of explanations to those under the age of about 50 from those of us over that age. Talking of Newcastle, a rumour persists that Mike Ashley, erstwhile of that parish, may be interested in taking over at Derby County. If that's the case, we could see a first, the only time that the club itself has raised the fit and proper test for club ownership in advance of a possible takeover. Let's move on to us. Well, it wasn't pretty at the weekend, but on balance we ought to have put that game to bed well before Bowen's fine breakaway goal wrapped things up. It was ultimately comfortable, but not quite as comfy as it ought to have been. There was a question mark over the first. With Atwell involved, that's hardly surprising. I haven't seen the replay, so I'll reserve judgment on that one. What I did see live at the time was Antonio being fouled on pretty much every occasion that the ball was played to him with his back to goal. One particular occasion saw the striker hauled down by the neck, the sort of tackle that results in an automatic red card in rugby, or a look of baffled bewilderment if you're a referee with a long history of not having the slightest clue as to what you're doing, like Atwell. Soufal was added to the injury list for the weekend, having seen the dreaded second red line appear on his COVID test. His availability hinges on when the first positive test was taken and whether or not the tests on days 5 and 6 have been clear. At least that's the rules at the moment. There are suggestions that Cresswell might be fit for a return, having paid off the bill to Manchester City for demolishing their goalpost. I've not heard anything official as yet, but in a match where other teams have already taken the opportunity to rotate the squad, this would be a reasonably ideal first game to have him back. Zoom is another week or two away, whilst Benrahma is out in Africa for a week or 3. Ogbonna, see you next season. So, on to the prediction then. Well, one way or another, I can only really see us winning. Whilst Dawson and Diop have their interesting moments as a partnership, they'll be up against the strike force that has between them scored exactly the same number of goals in the league as Antonio has, all on his own. At the back, the 42 goals conceded has left them with that goal difference of minus 34, which ought to have Antonio and Bowen chomping at the bit. So for that reason, I'm going to spend the £2.50 that would have gone on the commemorative DVD that Spurs are no doubt getting ready to put out to celebrate their win over Morecambe on a home win. Shall we say 3-0, please, Mr. Winston? Enjoy the game.
Right, so we're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.